Arboretum in Superior, Arizona.
Okay. It's beautiful here. Yes, this is Dave and Denise. We met them in Smyrna, Tennessee, when we worked at Amazon at the Murfreesboro location. So, yeah, we followed them.
They're following us. Hummingbird and butterfly garden. And we built, installed, and put all the signs in.
Holy cow.
I think it's about 120 in the whole place.
Wow. This is amazing.
We almost...
This is the humbutt garden.
Yeah, we call it humbutt. Hummingbird, butterfly. So
okay.
Humbutt. And we almost always see hummingbirds.
Wow.
They have up to 7 or 8 different species of hummingbirds come here in the summer. Over the winter, they have one. It's called the Anna hummingbird. And they would come in every day during our tours. And I'd stand here and I'd say, just wait for it, it'll come. And they would always come in. And people were like, woo, this is like magic. They have all kinds of stuff. They have every kind of honeysuckle you can imagine. And it attracts the butterflies, the bees, and the hummingbirds.
Okay.
So,
the first visitor center.
Yeah, they use this as the visitor center.
Oh, wow.
And the original greenhouses that they use. So we usually start when we get everybody to here and tell them some of the history about why this is here. So there was a gentleman named Boyce Tompson, and he was born in Montana, in a mining town in Montana, and his family eked out a living selling lumber to the mining ventures of the time, because that was a big deal. When he was about 10 or 11 years old, he started helping out with the family, and he didn't do really well in school. He really wasn't interested in school. So about 11 years old, he started taking the lumber to sell to the different mining ventures for his dad. And what he found out was when he went into the towns, he would go into the saloon, and he found out he was really good at gambling. He took a real liking to gambling. And they figured out he had a really good mathematical mind. He was actually really smart. He just didn't like things for him because he learned a lot about mining. He knew a lot about math and stuff, and his family wanted something better for him, so they sent him to Phillips Exeter Academy in New Hampshire. Really, it's still going today, prestigious boarding school. And he went there, and of course he was a poor kid, and it was all wealthy people. And he relieved the wealthy kids of their parents' money through gambling. You know, the after-hours gambling. And he went to the Columbia School of Mining in New York, and that's where he put it all together and went to the New York Stock Exchange on a school trip, and found out that that was what he was meant for, and that's how he made his fortune in mining ventures and on the stock market with the mining.
Wow.
And then he went on to, well, he had built a big mansion in New York, in Yonkers, New York, and he had some mining ventures out here just above Superior, and he fell in love with this place and decided he wanted to build his winter house, which we'll show you.
They have different areas throughout, like there's a South American exhibit, an Australian exhibit, a Mediterranean exhibit, all the different deserts of the world.
Huh. All those beautiful flowers.
Aren't they? They're just amazing. And these are all yuccas. They're related to agave.
Huh.
And if you've ever been to Joshua Tree, that's what a Joshua tree looks similar to that. It's a type of yucca.
Wow.
Yucca.
So
That's a
all of
different
this rock here is
Yeah.
what we call magma ridge.
Okay.
That was from separate volcanic activity from Picket Post Mountain. That actually, if you're familiar with the Superstition Mountains, was from that volcanic activity thrown
Roanoke.
about 20-25 miles over here.
Oh, wow.
But while we're here, we'll talk about some cactus and
Yes.
the differences that we've learned.
All right.
Saguaro cactus. And it looks kind of similar to that guy over there, doesn't it?
Yep.
It's different.
It's
and
different.
I'll tell you what's different about it. And notice the saguaro is arms start way up high.
Uh-huh.
That one there is a cordon grande. They start much lower.
Oh, yeah.
You'll notice that he's got on his arms little, or she, I'm not sure, got little flowers on the sides there.
Uh-huh.
The saguaro, when it blooms, it will bloom on top of its head, which it looks like it's starting to do usually around May.
Oh, yeah.
And the saguaro is also thinner at the base of the trunk, whereas the cordon grande is fatter at the base of the trunk.
Oh,
Saguaros are they only live here. They're only native to the Sonoran Desert.
oh, really?
They don't grow above 3,000 feet elevation, and they can live to be, what, 200 years old over here?
Really?
They can grow about 50 to 100 feet tall.
Yeah.
Wow.
Got your barrel cactus here.
Uh-huh.
Looks like a barrel. This is actually a fish hook barrel cactus. The Native Americans used to use those as fish hooks.
Oh, wow.
You've got your pad stem cactus back there, like a prickly pear cactus.
Uh-huh.
And then you've got your segmented stem here, the cholla cactus.
Oh, wow. That one does not look like fun.
No.
No, they actually call that a teddy bear cactus.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we always tell the kids, do you want to hug it? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
Most people in the area call cholla jumping cholla because they believe they could jump. They don't jump. They actually, because they have lots of little spines on them, those spines have barbs on the end of them. And if you walk by them, and I almost always, when I was walking, I would bump into this, they will attach to you and the whole segment breaks off and sticks in you.
Oh, wow.
And in order to get it out, most people grab it and then their hand's stuck to where it is. So they say to use a comb and try to comb it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are
Look at it, Jason.
particularly nasty.
Action. Welcome to Boojum Cove. Come on, Yalama. It's a boojum.
Wow.
Yep.
That is the funkiest looking thing I've ever seen.
It's a Boojum tree, but it's actually not a tree.
Oh, okay.
It thinks it's a tree, but
Uh-huh.
it's a shrub
Really?
related to the Ocotillo.
Wow.
So the Boojum, interesting story of how the Boojum got its name. Back when they started this arboretum, Colonel Thompson was sending his folks out throughout the world to try and find as many dryland plants as they could. And they found this in Baja California, Mexico.
Oh.
And at the time, one of the people on the expedition was actually reading a book. Have you you've heard of is it Lewis
Lewis
Carroll?
Carroll.
Lewis Carroll did Alice in Wonderland.
Okay. Yep.
He also wrote The Hunting of the Snark.
Mm-hmm.
And in The Hunting of the Snark, there was a mythical creature called the Boojum that they were looking for.
I remember that.
So one of the people on the expedition was apparently reading that book, and he said, "My goodness, we found the Boojum." And the name stuck and got printed in the papers, and the Boojum tree was
Wow.
born. So this tree was actually brought here back in, I think, 1925 in a 5-gallon bucket.
Really?
Yep.
This place is so cool.
Mansion.
This is
Is that a private residence?
crazy.
So this was Colonel William Boyce Tompson's winter house, the gentleman that funded this whole thing.
Right.
Wow.
And he decided, he was out here for his mining ventures. He saw this property and really wanted to build his winter home here because he had a mansion in New York. And he talked, this used to be part of Crook National Forest, which is now Tonto National Forest. And he ended up buying some other land they wanted, talked them into letting him build it here, and eventually traded to get this property
Wow.
and to have his house here. And there's now 400 acres. There
In 1923, allegedly a cost of $20,000.
Really?
6 months to build. It's 7,000 square feet.
Wow.
He came out here with his wife Gertrude. Gertrude didn't like it here. The house is pretty much occupied by raccoons now.
Really?
So,
really?
yeah, unfortunately,
In it at all?
now Colonel Thompson, he had a stroke in 1929.
His first time 1929.
But
Or-
nobody's been in it since then?
Well,
Oh no, I'm sorry, 26.
26. So, anyway, his wife didn't really like living with the servants, so eventually he built his wife a little bedroom house behind it, and he had a house off to the right, which unfortunately burnt down in 1953. So the servants pretty much had the 7,000 square foot home to themselves.
Wow.
So when he died in 1930, just a year after this place was dedicated, the Gertrude never came back. In the 50s, I believe, 40s,
30s and 40s.
40s, 30s, 40s, the property, the Arboretum could no longer afford to maintain it, so they sold the property, and it was run as a bed and breakfast for many years by a couple different families. In the 60s, the Rose family, I think it was, they bought it and just used it as a regular house, raised their children here. In 2008, I believe, the property was bought for $3 million by Arizona State Parks. And there used to be a three-way partnership with Arizona State Parks, University of Arizona, and the Arboretum. Last December, I don't know the details, but the partnership was dissolved. Property is still owned by Arizona State Parks, and there it sits.
So there is a bobcat that lives in this area. Not a bobcat, mountain lion. Either way, dangerous. Yeah.
This gets a little tricky when we have a group of 30 or 40 people trying to bring them through here.
I bet.
But everybody's so happy to be in the cool weather.
You can hear the bees everywhere.
Isn't it crazy?
Wow, this is amazing.
This is the marriage tree. It used to be a favorite place of some members that came here all the time, and they would always come here and they loved it. And they were married, I guess it was 60 some years, 63 years. And they fell in love with this tree. They thought it represented their marriage because it's two trees intertwined. So when the wife died, the husband dedicated this spot to her.
Oh.
And then when he passed away, his kids dedicated this bench so they'd always be together at the marriage tree.
Oh, wow.
People, this is their chance to get up close to geology here.
Uh-huh.
And look at the fault. I'm not a geologist, but
You can see the fault line
fault
right there.
right in there.
Wow.
An interesting story about this area here. If you see all this soot here,
Uh-huh.
remember how we talked about before Pickup Post Mountain and they were looking for the Indians?
Yeah.
For years, the tour guides were always telling them, maybe the Indians hid out here and that soot is from their fires there. So that story would go on and on and on for years and years and years by all the tour guides until one time, there's a gentleman on the tour and he said, well, I hate to burst your bubble there, but back when I was a Boy Scout, we used to camp here and have a fire here.
And they
That's
did
soot's
that.
from the Boy Scouts, not the Indians.
Isn't this cool, babe? So cool.
This is the pump house, where they pump the water and over and into the cisterns at Silver Lake.
Oh wow.
It's the original pump house, and they still use it to this day.